So Donald Trump made some more blood-curdling threats against Iran. He seems to be ready, basically, to go back to escalation, or at least he wants to give the impression that he's ready to go back to war with Iran. Iran is like, bring it on. They've been waiting for it. They fully expect it. There was some interesting reporting coming out from some former people in the intelligence community, one in particular that I kind of sometimes trust, John Kiriakou. He's a podcaster and part of the manosphere a little bit now. He's a former CIA guy, kind of interesting story. He said that he was told by sources that Donald Trump intends to begin the war on Monday or Tuesday, restarted on Monday or Tuesday. I'm Borzu Deragahi. This is my podcast. It's called Badlands, and I'm a former foreign correspondent and longtime resident of the Middle East region. I live now in Istanbul. You can subscribe to my newsletter and podcast at Borzu, BORZOU.substack.com. I think it's really worth it because there's some paid content, but quite a bit of free content, including this podcast. There have been some developments over the weekend. There was a report that the United Arab Emirates Seoul nuclear power plant in Barakah had come under some sort of attack. Several drones apparently were fired at it and they were shot down, except one hit a generator. Thankfully, there's no radiation leak or so on. And the United Arab Emirates told the International Atomic Energy Agency it reserves the right to respond to anyone who was responsible for this attack. Now, it's interesting because the UAE said that the attack came from its western border. If you look at a map, Iran is far from the western border of the United Arab Emirates, and perhaps it came from Yemen and the Houthis, but the Houthis have been kind of standoffish lately. They haven't been getting involved in this conflict. I don't know why at this point, with things kind of copacetic in Yemen with regard to its former war with Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, why the Houthis that are backed by Iran would choose this moment to attack the United Arab Emirates and then attack the nuclear power plant, which is, if there is an accident there, it would create severe problems for much of the region, not just for the United Arab Emirates, but if there was actually a leak of nuclear material, it would affect the entire Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf area. So I'm not sure why anyone would do that. Anyone from the region would do that, especially coming from the western border. If you look at a map, and I'll put one up here, look at the western border of the United Arab Emirates. It's mostly Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure why Saudi Arabia would do something like that. One of the most interesting things to emerge in recent weeks has been this report, and it's gaining a little bit more traction, that Iran used its American-made F-5 fighter jets dating back to the Shah era, but dating back to the pre-revolutionary era, used those during the war. That was first reported by NBC News. And I reached out actually to the Pentagon about this issue, about this allegation that Iran used these fighter jets to strike at Kuwait in particular and U.S. bases in particular. And they have not gotten back to me. I searched through Pentagon communications, and while there's a lot on the UFOs that has come out in recent days, there's very little about this attack, this creative use of these upgraded F-5 fighter jets to come in, evade U.S. radar and Kuwaiti radar and various air defenses, to fly in and hit these Kuwaiti targets. And what's interesting in recent days is that Iran issued a wild AI-generated little short movie that depicts what actually happened with these fighter jets and how they came in. These two fighter jets managed to evade the radars and the damage they caused. I'm sure there's a lot of exaggeration in this particular movie that came out, but why don't you just take a watch or a listen?
This mission is extremely difficult, and it may have no return. The strike on American base in Kuwait. Given the high risk of the operation, we will use F-5 fighter jets. They're old, but they're small and fast. Given the F-5's limited fuel range, you'll take this direct route. Stay under 100 meters, below their radar.
Are you seriously taking a selfie? This might be our last photo. God willing. Watch out! Cruise missiles! They're launching from Kuwait!
It's time. Launch the drones and missiles to support them.
Sir, multiple drones and missiles inbound to Kuwait base have been detected. Pin down their route and activate every air defense system along their path.
Do not let them reach the base.
Concentrate all defensive systems on those drones and missiles. Do not let any more of them hit Kuwait base. Commander, we have reports of several large explosions at base that were not caused by missiles or drones. Sir, those explosions were caused by two Iranian fighter jets.
How did we miss them on radar?
Identify them now!
Let's finish this.
Sir, we have two aircraft contacts on radar. Take them out! Now!
Sir, another aircraft has been detected and locked. Engage that one too.
Sir, we got them successfully. Good! Quickly verify what happened to the pilots.
Yes, understood. What?
What happened?
Sir, the aircraft we shot down were American F-15s.
Then where did the Iranian jets go?
Now, I condensed that version to make it a little bit shorter, but you get the idea. Russia Today also issued a report using various imagery. I'm not sure if it was AI generated or not, but a news report that summarized the NBC report and summarized exactly what happened according to the Iranians and the leaked reports that came out through NBC News.
According to NBC, a huge military scandal was unfolding in the Middle East. For years, they claimed this was an impenetrable shield, advanced, integrated, untouchable, until two upgraded Iranian F-5s showed up. They crossed fully active air defense systems, no interception, no response, and struck a U.S. military base in Kuwait. Then they left. Moments later, confusion turned into panic. And in that chaos, Kuwaiti air defense systems shot down 3 American aircraft by mistake. Billions in damage, silence from officials, satellite images delayed, information restricted, not stealth fighters, not next-generation weapons, just upgraded legacy jets. So here's the real question. What else got through that we still don't know about?
These developments, I think they show some kind of creativity on the part of the Iranians in terms of fighting war. And they show how war can become unexpected. And you have these amazing plans that you think are going to work. I think that's what happened with the Americans. They thought that all their tools would protect them and that the Iranians wouldn't do this. Well, they did that. And the Iranians were able to use some war techniques that the Americans didn't expect. I was recently on a discussion with SEN News, South Era Networks. Me and Ibrahim Al-Marashi, another analyst, we discussed this kind of new warfare tools that are coming out and these new techniques. And if you see what is happening in Iran and what was happening in Iran during the war, there are also similarities to what's going on in Ukraine. And there's a similarity in those two conflicts in that you have this big, arrogant, and bullying power. In the case of Eastern Europe, it's Russia. In the case of the Middle East, it's the United States and Israel coming at a country that they think it's going to be a cakewalk, and it's not, and it's completely unexpected. And Ibrahim and I have some interesting revelations that we touch upon in this rather interesting and fruitful discussion.
Joining us now from Istanbul is Borso Daragahi, longtime foreign correspondent and author of the newsletter Badlands at borso.substack. Also with us is Ibrahim Al-Marashi, international security analyst, joining us from Samarkand in Uzbekistan. First to you, Borso. Conflicts in the Middle East are no longer about missiles and large armies. How much have drones, cyber attacks, and proxy groups changed the balance of power?
Well, I think they've changed the balance of power a considerable bit, especially when it comes to strategies of warfare. We saw that in Ukraine with the much stronger Russians running into a quagmire when confronted with the more creative yet less powerful Ukrainians who came up with these strategies. Iranians studied those strategies. They did their homework, and they've been using those strategies against the Americans, against American allies and partners in the region. We used to consider drones something of a nuisance on the battlefield, something that people would laugh about. They were much more powerful in terms of surveillance, and also the sort of larger, more powerful, and much more expensive combat drones that the U.S. uses. But what we see in both Ukraine and Iran is the use of these multiple sources of power, including electricity, fiber optics. In the case of Hezbollah in Lebanon, these small suicide drones really making a difference, becoming much more than a nuisance, but becoming a strategic tool.
Ibrahim, to you now, today's conflicts often combine drones, cyber attacks, and information campaigns. Deadly trio. Are we now seeing a blur between conventional and non-conventional warfare?
Absolutely. This is under the same paradigm of hybrid warfare. The blurring of the conventional and the non-conventional ultimately means that there's a new asymmetry in conflict. Somebody could dominate the skies through drones that are cheaply made. Somebody can dominate cyberspace. And as a result, the conventional arsenal ensured a superpower's dominance is no longer a guarantee of success. Ukraine or in Ukraine versus Russia or Iran versus the US.
We are seeing relatively cheap technologies challenge major military powers. Does this mean smaller states and non-state actors now have much greater influence in war?
Well, I'm not sure, and I think that that remains to be seen. I think that's one variable, but another variable in both Ukraine and Iran is geography. You know, they say geography is determinant in these conflicts, and the fact is that when you are a invading force, when you are an attacking force, you are inherently at a disadvantage. And in the case of Iran, for example, it is a very mountainous country that makes it very ideal for this kind of hybrid warfare. It's very difficult, for example, to invade a country that is a mountain fortress because you have the defending force positioned all over mountains and so on. It's very difficult to target drones in a country made up of caves and mountainsides and so on, because they're well hidden away inside various crevices in the country. In the case of Iran, I would say rather than it's a combination of both these new types of warfare, this kind of hybrid warfare that Dr. Marashi was talking about, as well as this geographical factor, and it's probably the geography is more significant.
If you could reflect on the future combination of offensive and defensive weapons, because we started off with nukes and we are discussing low-end drones as well. Is there going to be a combination that will guarantee national security? Will it vary from country to country, region to region? You mentioned geography as well. So I'm just trying to understand, is there going to be the ideal fit that if you have this combination, this range of weaponry, this range of technology, you are okay in a world that is really chaotic?
I mean, on one level, one hopes it serves as a cautionary tale in that if Iran could put up such a robust defense, perhaps it will put on the brakes on future warmongering. It demonstrates that even if you think you have a more conventional military advantage, there's that so-called phrase, the fog of war, and that when the actual combat emerges, you can never anticipate the outcomes. And so, one would hope from a normative perspective, the Iran case would be it definitely, I think, has put an end to kind of the war-making capabilities of the U.S., at least for the near term, particularly under the Trump administration. So I would say it's for the better.
Borso, now coming to you, beyond the battlefield itself, how important is information warfare and social media in shaping public opinion during conflicts?
It is very important. The social media issue is very important right now. For Israel, it's very important. For the U.S., it's very important. And for Iran, it's been very important in this particular war, especially for a country like in the case of Iran or in the case of Vietnam during the U.S. invasion. the shaping of perceptions globally and in the enemy country is crucial and vital. And Iran has been able to utilize the lessons of the past as well as some creative new tools such as AI with these Lego videos and clever tweets from its foreign ministry and so on to shape the perception in the U.S. that Iran was this innocent country that was attacked unprovoked. It has likened the war to one waged by the Epstein class, an unjust war. It has tied its cause to that of the civil rights movement in the U.S. And these are lessons from the past. Ho Chi Minh employed similar strategies in getting the United States to back out of Vietnam and to create division inside the United States at the time of the war. So in this particular instance, it's very important. But it should be also said that, for the U.S., they don't care. I don't think that the U.S. government, it went to war with a very poor strategy, very poor social media strategy. It is not winning the social media war. It is not winning the battle of perceptions because it sort of stumbled into this conflict, and it's basically the ego of one man that's keeping it in the conflict.
So do you think that the Western governments, in a way, have not been very quick in adapting to this new hybrid warfare?
Absolutely, because when you're talking about Western governments, remember, you're talking about entrenched bureaucracies with their own interests. And by their nature, bureaucracies are always reactive. They're not proactive. So to just, follow up on Borzu's point, remember during the rise of ISIS, the State Department was tasked with creating social media messages to basically prevent youth from being seduced by ISIS's social media. And they were just awful. They were you had made fun of. Compared to the White House and their social media campaign. It hasn't compared to Iran, where in the Iranian case, a lot of the Lego videos aren't made by the government themselves, but kind of outsourced by these kind of content producers in the public, opposed to the government control. If you look at the Department of Defense in the U.S. as well, this is a bureaucracy that actually wedded to the old ways of fighting, aircraft carriers, tanks, advanced aircraft, and basically bureaucracies like that weren't ready to adopt to the low-cost drone campaigns of Iran. And of course, you could say the same of Russia, that its massive bureaucracy hadn't learned the lessons from neither the Georgia War of 2008 and on the 2020 invasion of Ukraine. It failed to anticipate that these kind of low-cost drones would make the Russian military advantage almost immune.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of my podcast. I'm Borzu Daragahi. You can subscribe to my newsletter and podcast at borzu.substack.com. If you're already a subscriber, hey, why don't you consider either sharing this newsletter with some other people or upgrading your subscription to a paid subscription? And thank you so much.